All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee meeting, and we will begin with our land acknowledgement to start us off. Grimsby is situated on treaty land, and this land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Haudenosaunee, Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The regional municipality of Niagara and Grimsby stand with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. Okay, so just getting myself organized here. I feel like I have extra papers and technology today. Okay, so moving on for any disclosures of pecuniary interest tonight? I'm seeing nothing, so we'll move on to the agenda. I have a resolution here. Resolved that the July 22nd, 2025 Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee agenda be approved. I'll need a carrier. All right, that's the Flavio, and a seconder, and that's Councillor Cristangi. Oh, all in favor? That's great and carried. Next up is the receipt of previous minutes. So we all got a chance to look at the minutes from June. And I have a resolution here resolved that the Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee minutes of June 10th, 2025 be received. A mover. We have Amy and a seconder. We have Cristangi again. And all in favor? Okay, that's carried as well. Thank you. Okay. Next up is a verbal update for the working group. So let me just grab up my notes for that. I'm not sure if you want to pull up maybe the map on the screen because it is beautiful and we should all be looking at it. Okay, so an update for the working group. As you know, over the last I think it's been over a year at this point, we've been working on an education and outreach project to promote and celebrate Grimsby's built heritage. And we're at the point now where we have a final version of that project to go through to committee and then to council. So the updated map that was sent around with the agenda, this is the most up-to-date version where we've addressed the issues that were brought up in the June meeting. So just to reiterate what those were, we wanted to identify private residences and mark those, make it a little bit clear that these are private and that we must respect private property. We wanted to highlight museums and cultural institutions more clearly, identify the Iroquois Trail, and add the property dates included along with the property titles for each property listed. And we wanted to add a compass, update the title card, change some fonts, and also add the logos of the various community groups that have been a part of this project. So those have been updated and they're now on the map for your review. This also, because we changed the July meeting, it gave us a couple extra weeks. We were actually able to, through the town, distribute letters to the private residences that were added on this map to kind of give them a highlight, like, hey, this is the project. We included a mock-up of the map so they could see the kind of information that was included on the map, so they had all the information they needed. And we asked that if anyone had objected to being involved to contact the town, and the town hasn't received any opposition. So we're taking that as support, and so I think that was really great that we were able to get some communication out to the residences as well, so that everyone, and this isn't a surprise to the people in the downtown, and we can really celebrate these properties appropriately and with people's consent. So I wanted to ask if there was any further comment on the map at this point or questions. Okay, awesome. Again, I wanted to just give a thanks to Shelley at the Charming Place, who's we've been working with to develop the map, and then as well as the Grimsby Museum, Nels Manor Museum, and Grimsby Historical Society, as well as the town, of course, for their support and their contributions for developing it. So with this, if we're able, we have a resolution here because the goal here is that we can get this to council in our endorsement package, and once that goes ahead, then we can print the map. The map has received funding through the Niagara Community Foundation, which is fantastic. And part of the reason why we have a timeline here is the International Plowing Match is in September, and it's quite a big deal for West Niagara. And the town of Grimsby does have a booth there, so this will be an opportunity for us to promote Grimsby's built heritage on like a wider scale, not just residents, but tourists and all these thousands of folks that are coming here for the plowing match as well. So this is a really great opportunity, and I'm really excited to kind of get this out into the world and see what the feedback is. So hopefully this is just the beginning of something really exciting. But yeah, if there's no other comments or questions. Awesome. Okay, I have a resolution then. All right, resolved that the working group update regarding the mapping Grimsby's historic sites be received, and that the final draft of the map be recommended for approval to enable the use of the available funding and to further encourage community education through the circulation of this map. A mover. You have Councillor Christangi. And a seconder to Flavio. All in favor? Okay, that's great and carried. Thank you very much. Awesome. Okay, moving on with our reports for the night. First up is a demolition request for the roof structure at 369 Park Road North, and Garrett will be presenting that report. Go ahead, Garrett.
Thank you, through you, Chair. The property at 369 Park Road North has been listed on the Municipal Heritage Register since 2022. The property was listed on the register due to its age and placement along the historically significant Park Road corridor and its location within the Grimsby Beach neighborhood. On June 17, 2025, the applicants submitted a demolition request and architectural plans for a proposed second-floor addition to the dwelling. Staff notified the property owner that preliminary findings showed that the building has the potential to hold associative and contextual value. Staff noted that the initial application included the demolition of the front dormer, which is a character-defining element of the property. Staff recommended that the property owner withdraw their intent to demolish to allow for more time to meet with staff and discuss the potential of leaving the dormer in situ during the renovation. The applicants withdrew their intent to demolish at that time. Staff and the applicants discussed the heritage attributes of the property that should be maintained to conserve the heritage significance of the property. Staff also discussed the potential of designating the property at a later date. On July 9th, the applicants resubmitted a complete demolition request and associated drawings to facilitate the retention of the dormer. During staff's review, it was found that 369 Park Road North was built as the caretaker's cottage, a year-round residence for the park's superintendent who managed daily operations and logistics sometime before the park's 1909 sale to Harold Wiley. The structure's bungalow-style construction differs from the vernacular of most of the Grimsby Beach's 19th century Chautauqua cottages, suggesting it had been a relatively modern addition for its time to the area. In 1910, George Fair, the newly appointed superintendent of Grimsby Park, and Wiley's brother-in-law moved into the cottage with his family, and this cottage was continuously occupied by members of the Fair family until at least 1974. George Fair contracted carpenter Jacob Walters, who at the time was Grimsby Park's primary building contractor, to disassemble and relocate the subject structure from its original position on the corner of Grand Avenue and Phelps Avenue, which is now Lake Street, to be moved to its current position at 369 Park Road North. This was likely completed in 1911 or 1912. It was at this time that Phelps Avenue was extended to Park Road to facilitate the separate vehicle entrance to Grimsby Park. The application includes demolishing a section of the main hip to roof between the dormer at the front of the home and the second-story portion of the home towards the rear. The proposed work intends to remove minimal material and conserve the character-defining features while expanding the home's second story. The addition to the home will allow for the construction of an additional bedroom and second-floor bathrooms. The applicant has confirmed that the construction will be stick-framed, reducing the need for heavy machinery on the site. This approach will reduce strain on the original portions of the home as well. I just wanted to point out, you can see it up on the screen there, but in red we've highlighted what will be removed, and the yellow is the material that will be retained. So the property owners are being cognizant of keeping, where the original roof lines were and profiles of the building. In summary, staff have reviewed the demolition request and are supportive of the collaborative efforts and work proposed on the lands. Significant efforts have been made by the property owners to conserve the character-defining attributes and overall integrity of the heritage resource. Due to significant findings while reviewing the property, staff recommend that the requested demolition be permitted and that the dwelling remain listed on the Municipal Heritage Register to allow for further review of historical findings. Staff recommend that the demolition request for the roof section at 369 Park Road North be recommended for approval, and that the proposed area of demolition be photo documented and that copies be provided to the Grimsby Historical Society for their archives, and that any viable material from the demolition be salvaged and incorporated into the renovation and/or offered to salvage companies to discourage high-quality materials from entering the landfill, and that the property remains listed on the Municipal Heritage Register to allow for review in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Garrett. Are there any questions or comments from the committee? I guess Councillor Kristangi, go ahead.
Thank you, through Chair. Just a quick question. So if we allow this, is this gonna in any way affect being able to designate it later? Will it change the house so much that it would not fit the proper criteria?
Through you, Chair. That was the discussion that staff had with the property owners. Their initial application was removing probably 3/4 of the second floor, but we were discussing the potential of designating the property, and if we went the designation route, what would we want to see conserved on the building and what would be identified as a character-defining element. So we found that the roof lines of the home and the dormer and the second floor rear addition were kind of the primary character-defining elements. So, but to allow the site to evolve, and the site has already evolved considering the fact that it was moved to its current location, staff felt that the addition was appropriate and wasn't harming the integrity of the home and the designation merit. Thank you.
So basically, it's the middle ground of, maintaining the heritage, but also allowing the owners to be able to evolve. Okay.
Through you, Chair, the staff feel that the addition is also very distinguishable from the rest of the home, so you'll still be able to see what was an original roof line. You can see in the rendering, I took it off the screen, but they also altered the roof pitch on the addition to be slightly different than the original one, so it's still paying respect to the form, but it's slightly altered, so you can see a difference there as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that explanation. Great question, Councillor Kristangi. Any other comments? From my interpretation of the report, it really does seem like this is a really good example of collaboration between heritage staff and the property owners, where we're able to protect the heritage attributes, but working with the homeowners to kind of allow their home to evolve to meet their needs, but still working. And I think having this positive relationship will hopefully end, lead up to a designation, and then the property owners can benefit from what that entails too, with the grants and the incentives. So I think this seems like a really good example of collaboration. So it was nice to see. Awesome. Okay, if there's no other questions, I can move on to the resolution. All right. Okay, so resolved that report HR 2513 for demolition request, roof structure 369 Park Road North be received, and that the demolition request for a section of the roof of 369 Park Road North be recommended for approval, and that the proposed area of demolition at 369 Park Road North be photo documented, and that copies be provided to the Grimsby Historical Society for their archives, and that any viable material from the demolition be salvaged and incorporated into the renovation or offered to salvage companies to discourage high-quality materials from entering the landfill, and that the property remains listed on the Municipal Heritage Register to allow for further review in the future. A mover. Amy. A seconder? That's a Flavio. All in favor? Great, that's carried. Awesome, thanks, everyone. And we'll move forward to a heritage permit application for 447 Elizabeth Street, and Bianca will be presenting this report. Go ahead.
Thank you, through you, the chair. So we have a heritage permit application for the property at 447 Elizabeth Street. The property is known as the Elizabeth Street Pump House and was designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act in 2000. And this parcel of land includes many auxiliary buildings, including the now decommissioned water treatment plant, which is a little bit further down the road, but the land is connected. So the application required a heritage permit because when demolition is proposed on a designated property, it requires council approval. So within this report, we kind of talked a little bit more about the decommissioned water treatment plant and a little bit of the history of the building. So the actual original designation for the property focused on the Elizabeth Street Pump House and the history of that important building. And in the report, I kind of talked a bit about how a lot of emphasis has been put on the preservation of that building, as it played an important role to the community. And that type of construction enabled the building to be continually restored over time. And we're kind of having a little bit of a different situation with the other facility, which is the water treatment plant, where we have more modern materials. And this was at a time before epoxy was applied to, it was called steel rods. I always want to call it a different name, but now they're epoxy covered. So these steel rods would never have been covered in epoxy. So basically over time, when we went through our annual freeze thaw cycles, as the concrete kind of expands and contracts, small cracks are made, and then water enters into these cracks, oxygen, and then they oxidize. And so because it's not covered in epoxy, essentially over time, the steel starts to decompose. And so that's essentially what this entire structure is built out of. And I put some pictures in there because I think it's pretty interesting to see how big the actual facility is and the kind of infrastructure that's underground. So in order to ensure safety for the community, there's been a 2-meter high chain link fence kind of protecting this area, because we don't know the full extent of the integrity of the steel at this point. But as a part of this review, we did kind of learn more about this facility and kind of its role within water treatment in the town. It was constructed by 1958. And so that was just before they started requiring like rebar and stuff like that to be coated in epoxy. So it's pretty interesting to see how this era of construction, how we could like manage change on these as a part of the report. But yeah, so in order to commemorate this important part of the history of the site, we're recommending that a plaque be installed on the property, speaking to this interesting history that we found and kind of how the actual systems worked, and have it be an education opportunity. And the area is proposed to be restored parkland, and then we think the plaque would be a nice addition to the area. We also included in the report that there was no impacts to the original designation of the property, which was largely focused on the Elizabeth Street Pump House and the engagement at the 40. So staff recommend that the demolition request for the former water treatment plant at 447 Elizabeth Street be recommended for approval, and that a plaque be placed within the restored parkland outlining the process of water treatment that operated out of this facility, and that the water treatment plant be photo documented, and that copies be provided to the Grimsby Historical Society for their records. Thank you.
Thank you for that report, Bianca. Are there any questions from the committee? Yes, Councillor DeFlavio.
Thank you, Chair, through you. Not a question, just I'm sure that somewhere there are photos of that original water treatment plant with, you know, from when it was built and with people working on the site that in the past, as you know, we've had the Museum of the Streets kind of, you mentioned a plaque. I don't know if that's what you mean by that, like the big sort of information type plaques, but I think that would be a great addition to the site. That being said, I'm looking forward to this finally being taken down. It's been around now for 20 years with the town, and it's kind of been in that middle ground all this time. So from a non-heritage perspective, I'm interested in seeing this go forward. So thank you for your report, and I'm looking forward to the other cool history that you uncover as this comes forward.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Oh, okay, yes. Garrett had his hand up and Bianca did.
Through you, Chair, one of the items that staff were recommending be included on the plaque were the original drawings that were done of the building in 1958 that were found during our review, and they're included in the report as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to ask, so the brick building, is it like connected to the pools? Is it like integrated? Is that why, like if we demolish, we have to get rid of the pools, we have to get rid of the brick as well?
Through the chair, there's a picture inside the report, but it's pretty surprising to see how deep down, oh, maybe I just put the top view. Sarah, I don't know if I might ask Sarah to speak to it, how deep it is, but there's like a significant amount of infrastructure underneath that building. And that is, again, that kind of same construction where we have this untreated structural steel. And so we don't really know the condition of that infrastructure. That's one of the reasons why the building is fenced off, but Sarah might be able to add more insight into that.
Thanks, through the chair. Nice to see you all. So in the one picture, you see the exterior tanks that are to the side of the building, and they are right adjacent to the building. But the picture you probably don't see as much as this giant tank that's under that first floor, and I think that's what Bianca is referring to. That really, and above it is just that room that is, I think, built in a similar fashion, and really would be hard to imagine how we would do anything really, unfortunately, useful with it. Hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, yes, thank you for providing clarity. I was imagining that was the case, but I was just curious because when you described the brickwork, it seemed quite intricate and a well-built brick building, and then underneath is where we seem to have a lot of the issues. So I don't know if it's worth asking. Maybe my other question is what I know the report says parklands will be improved on the property, but is there plans to build a new building, or will it strictly just be park space? I don't know if Sarah, if you're the best one to answer.
Through you, Chair, right now the plan would be to restore it to green space. So there is not a plan right now to put a building on there, more to restore it to green space because it's beautiful waterfront land that unfortunately right now is just really hidden with the building that is there. So that would be the intention.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that too, because I was going to suggest if we were demolishing this building, maybe we can use that brick in a different way on the property. Yes, Councillor DeFlavio, if you wanted to add to that. Yeah,
no, if that's something that could be done, that'd be great. It seems, because it's not, the age of the brick is not one where it was 1959, did you say? 58. It's not like a rare brick or anything like that. So, I mean, if it's something that we can use somewhere else, that'd be great. I don't think people understand the extent of the demolition that's going to be required here. Like, if you look at the drawings that were provided in the report, the concrete walls between the tanks and the concrete walls around the tanks are 3 feet of solid concrete, reinforced, right? Like, we're not talking about, like, I still think that the best thing to do would be fill it in because I don't know that demolition, other than the building this over top, I think demolition is going to require like dynamite, but that's not a heritage discussion. I think that looking at those drawings, if you look at the details on them and understanding the way things were built in the 1950s, this is like the 1958 Cadillac of water treatment buildings. So you're going to need some serious demolition to get this thing down. That's all.
Thank you for that comment. Brian, I see that your hand is up. I'm sorry that if I've missed you in the past. Brian, I think you might be muted.
Of course, I'm muted. Through you, Chair. So the question I have is around the statement where it says the reason statement of significance identified in 2000, the property does not include the water treatment facility. Did it include other attributes, or was it completely silent on the individual attributes? Like, I just want to kind of clarify that.
Through the chair, so because this is an older bylaw, they don't have the attributes listed. So when we have a situation like that, usually we look for attributes visible from the public realm, is typically best practice, and then we look at the statement of significance as well. So the statement of significance focused on the actual historic pump house building, and then reference to the engagement at the 40 that happened on those lands. So there was no reference to the other treatment plant. But I still think there's a really cool connection for the plaque to talk about how the pump house itself brought water up to the water treatment plant and things like that. Like, I think there's going to be a lot of ways to actually share with the community how this worked. And so I think that history will be captured in the plaques, just as a side note. But there was no actual attributes identified, so we leaned on the statement of significance for that one. But as for like individual attributes, typically it's visible from the public realm for best practice.
Gotcha. Thank you. And then another question through you, Chair. The statements that are made throughout about the age of the building, it says it was constructed by 1958. Any idea when the construction started?
Through the chair, we didn't have a definitive date, but we do have as-built drawings that confirm it was built by 1958. So that's why we went with that date. But from our records, it looks like it was in the 1950s, but we know for sure it was done by 58.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your questions, Brian. So I wanted just to touch on the interpretation of the site a little bit. I think this is a really great idea to have like an interpretive plaque with the photos and the drawings. I think to teach about the water treatment as a process and a very 20th century process. I think there's some really cool stories there. So I'm glad to see that was considered. And I do wonder if there's like a deeper, like a more meaningful way to consider with like the park space itself. Like, I know the Niagara region seems to really like water education. Like, they have like the water festival every year. So I don't know if there's like extra funding for extra educational opportunities. Like, I don't know, like I'm thinking about how this massive footprint of these pools, and if there's a way that we can mark those somehow in the park. Like, I don't know what that would look like, but I think it's really interesting what you're saying, Councilor DeFlavio, about like how they're so big and they're so deep and there's so much there, and there's just an interesting opportunity to like interpret that in some creative ways. And I don't know what that would look like, but I would like us to explore educating and interpreting the space beyond just a static plaque. If that's possible, I think I would like to add that to what we're doing, if that's okay. And I don't know what that would look like, but it's exploring it, you know, and especially like, I don't know, I know this used to be, it was regional land and then it moved to the town. So I don't know if the region has funding, but they love their water education, right, with their water festival every year. So I know that they might have something to help us tell that story. So that's something that I would like to add to our recommendations, if anyone's okay with that.
Through you, Chair, I don't know what that would look like, but we can send it to our Community Services Committee and Community Services Director and see if, because I think it's going to just be an open space, and an interpretation would mean putting something there that I don't think was intended to be there. So I think the plaque is a good way to go. I mean, it can indicate a lot of the things that you're talking about without it being in the ground. I don't know, because I don't know if it's meant to just be open space and not, a sort of fixed park structure of any kind, other than putting posts in the ground and saying this is where it used to be. The idea is to get rid of it. So, and going back to the previous discussion about the heritage designation bylaw, I think I was around when we designated the pump house and when we got this land from the region, and they were two separate parcels of land, and that's why it's not mentioned in the bylaw. I don't think anybody at any time thought of the pump house and this building, other than the obvious association, because they were both part of the water treatment process, as one property. And that's why there's no mention of this in that bylaw. There was never any intention of it being part of that bylaw. So I'm glad we're dealing with it, but I think we're overthinking it. I think it's just pretty simply a demolition and documentation situation. But if you want to put that through to the committee, I think that the plaque will cover it personally. But if you don't, I'll second your motion. I'm fine either way.
Thank you. I think I'm looking at, looking for deeper interpretation, and like if they're thinking of doing a playground, I'm not sure what the plan is for that park, but if there's like ways to kind of mark out the footprint of it in like a unique way is what I'm wondering. I think it's also worth mentioning, and again, I know this is supposed to be a simple thing, but like we're going to start seeing more mid-20th century things coming through the committee as we move forward. That is still heritage, right? So like there is still heritage value to the space, and I would probably guess that at the time too, when we were designating the pump house, we weren't considering this water treatment plant as heritage, because especially in the early 2000s, we weren't considering 1950s buildings heritage, right? So I think our idea of heritage is changing too, and so I want us to consider that as we go forward as well, that what we think is heritage and valuable and character and tells a story is going to evolve as we move through the 21st century now. And so I just don't want to lose an opportunity now, later, is also why I bring this up. Yes, Amy, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I think that there's a good common ground. I think both are valid. One of the things too, moving forward, when you talk about interpretation or maybe getting more involved, because there are limitations to a plaque, obviously. There's only so much space to document, bringing in technology and digital aspects, right? So is there opportunity for the plaques to evolve through QR codes that link to websites? I think that can be a way in the future, because again, this is just green space, and I think it's uncharted territory, whether it just remains open or if you start to build, but a good compromise in the meantime, or even just for consideration in the future when we do demolish sites, or even those that we're honoring that are still standing, just if we want to go a little bit deeper into that heritage, bridging that gap and allowing people to interact in different ways. So that might be a good compromise.
Yes, thank you, Amy. Yes, that's a good point, to bring in technology to kind of help tell those stories. Are there any other questions or comments on this report? Okay. Okay. So I think I would like to add a motion about just exploring different options for interpretation through park design to this. Just an exploration to see what that means, and see if there's creative ways that we can kind of share this story beyond. And maybe it's something digital and using technology as well, but I think it's worth exploring this. So Bianca's just helping me write a motion. Oh, yes, Sarah, go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. So our plan is, once we restore this area to parkland, is to eventually look at some more design of that park space, and as well as what is nearby, which is the pump house, the pier is there, the parking lot, the pathway, the new bridge we're putting in, and trying to look at that all, as well as there's close proximity, so there's a good opportunity to, so if we can just leave it open, that we could incorporate it into that design timing, which wouldn't be right away, but it would be nice to look at that as a whole as well, in terms of how you can maneuver through that space.
Okay, yeah, yes, we can definitely certainly suggest that this happens in the future. And I do also just want to say, growing up in that neighborhood, that I'm very excited to see something being done with that space. And like you say, it's kind of hidden. It's not really accessible. And the whole time I was growing up there, it was just kind of this building up on a hill surrounded by fence that you couldn't access. So I am excited to see that that something's happening, and that there's something in the future that will be able to develop the space for community enjoyment. So I just wanted to say that also. Okay. Enough with I'll move on to the resolution then. And we can move forward. Oh, we'll get a comment, but okay, anyway. Resolution here, that heritage permit application for 447 Elizabeth Street dated July 22nd, 2025 be received, and that the demolition request for the former water treatment plant at 447 Elizabeth Street be recommended for approval, and that a plaque be placed within the restored parkland outlining the process of water treatment that operated out of this facility, and that the treatment plant at 447 Elizabeth Street be photo documented and copies be provided to the Grimsby Historical Society for their archives, and that further interpretive options be explored during the park design phase. Do I have a mover? Councillor Cristangi. And a seconder. Is that Brian seconding? We can join, yes, okay. Brian's on the board. Thank you, Brian. Okay, all in favor? Okay, that's carried. Okay, thanks, everyone. Okay, next up, we have a designated property grant program update presented by Bianca. So go ahead.
Thank you, through you, the chair. Excited to bring this to the committee for an update. So we wanted to bring this forward. We've completed the pilot program. We're in the process of finalizing some of those grants. We've already had some property owners reach out for us to do inspections, and the work has been being completed. So far, we've received really great feedback from all of the property owners about the process, and I just wanted to cover within this report some of the feedback that we received as a part of the program, and then just like some of our thoughts on it and if it should be integrated. We also, again, want to give the committee another opportunity to provide any comments that they have. And then the idea is, again, we would like to go out and have the program run again this year for an additional intake period. And so kind of just quickly go over some of the feedback received. So within the report, I kind of broke it up into committee, council, and then property owners. So the Heritage Committee wanted us to further expand some of the criteria and give some more, the way I adjusted the criteria was more to be question specific and more guidance. And then we also talked about how we would take the tax incentive program into consideration, and then there's an additional community grant for nonprofit that we also took into consideration into the criteria. So kind of the idea was, if you received the funding, you kind of lost your additional points for being a nonprofit, was just to put you back in even playing field with everyone else if funding was received elsewhere for the nonprofit. And then for people receiving the tax incentive, we again put in criteria to take that in consideration. I think as the programs run every year, it won't be less awkward because we'll know that the previous year someone applied for funding and then we can automatically take the point off. So I think this will just be a transition year because technically we didn't have applicants last year. So just the way that it'll line up because they'll get it for next year. So we'll kind of worry about it in the future for that criteria. And that was to address the comment from the committee that the timeline should work together. At council, we received 2 comments. One that we would consider splitting the funding amongst all of the applicants. And the reason we didn't recommend this is because we've been working with property owners on those conservation master plans. And so they have larger projects in mind. And so we wanted to ensure that there was still a budget for larger projects. And then there was also the budget for lower projects. Because if we split it equally, the people who were aiming for a smaller project may not be willing to put in as much money to do the matching. So we thought it was good to keep the 2 options and then just award based on merit from the criteria. And then there was another comment at council that the grant only be offered to successful applicants that are not receiving any other grant funding. So instead of saying they were disqualified from receiving the funding, we just took it into consideration to put them in an even playing field with everyone else. And then some of the feedback from the property owners. So as I mentioned, in general, everyone was really supportive of the program. They thought it was a good process and yeah, and then we also had support from the property owners on the amount. So they liked, because in the past our grant was a lot larger and it wasn't really easy for people to come up with that amount of funding because it was like $35,000, but they had to put it up front and then they received it afterward. So they liked the new options of the different types of funding, which was at the $2,000 and the $5,000. We did hear from some property owners that additional funding should be allocated. This year we received 10 applications, 10 or 11, and 7 were successful. But I think we still want to run it one more time and see like how the funding is used, and then we can come back to council and say more is needed, because we also are launching the tax incentive. So I think we still want to see like how it actually runs, because we did in the past with the other grant kind of have a difficult time getting people applying for the funding. So we just kind of want to see first how it is before we come back to council with that. We also had property owner bring up the idea of having certain buildings score higher for having more historical significance. But we felt that all properties designated had gone through that stringent process, being evaluated against the criteria, and they're all important for different reasons and contribute to the town for different reasons. And so we think that they're all worthy of preservation. So we don't think that that should be a criteria. They've already met the threshold and now should be maintained equally. One of the property owners mentioned that safety concerns should be prioritized. It helps them to obtain affordable insurance. And so we added in a criteria that they may get additional points if they're doing something that helps with safety concerns. And then another comment we had was a separate grant should be considered for not-for-profit businesses. And so I just mentioned in here, we already have a program that's run through the town that focuses on community projects, and that's the GCDG program, which is the Community Development Grant. And so that's when a not-for-profit program has a project in mind. And so we do have a program that runs that way, but we still think that the not-for-profit should be able to apply for the grant because their buildings also have value for the same reasons that they're important to the community. So that's some of the feedback from the comments received. And then the other thing staff had brought forward was we didn't ask for quotes this time. But it kind of made it a little difficult when we were awarding the grants because we weren't 100% able to confirm that that was 100% going to be a $5,000 project. And similarly for the 2,000, we were comfortable in the fields. We have a general idea of how much these kind of projects cost, but we weren't 100% certainty. So we're going to be asking that quotes be submitted, and that just makes sure that all funding is actually used up. And then, again, speaking to the benefits of the program, the heritage property owners are the stewards of the town's cultural resources. This program helps provide opportunity for the town to contribute directly to the preservation of our built heritage, and it allows for projects to be focused on the restoration and rehabilitation of attributes. it further incentivize designation. And I also wanted to touch on heritage resources being a valuable asset to the community. They encourage a sense of place, and they positively influence everyone's property values, economic growth through tourism, environmental conservation, and provides educational opportunities for this generation and future generations. And it also helps us to ensure that these assets will be here for the next generation. So next steps, we're recommending that the program itself be updated to include the requirement for quotes, and then we're recommending that the new criteria be used. And then we will start the process of calling again for applications. Yeah, so I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Bianca. It's really exciting to see the program evolve. Councilor DeFlavio, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, having been part of the committee that went through this the first time, I'm glad that we're learning from that process. A couple of things that I'd like to see added are a tie-breaking procedure of some kind. So it could be, preference for first-time applicants as a tiebreaker, or greater public benefit. I don't know. I'll leave that up to you to determine, but we had some that were close last year, and I'd like to see a process where we can break that tie in a way that's transparent and that people know in advance, so they're checking that box if they can. And I don't know if there's some way to include relative cost sharing into the way that we grade. So, if somebody's willing to invest $20,000 for the $2,000 grant versus somebody spending $2,000 for the $2,000 grant, I think that we need to, because our goal is to get people to invest in their heritage home. So there has to be a way for us to, well, it doesn't have to be. I mean, I think it would be nice to have a way for us to incentivize more. So if people are spending more, it gives them a higher grade in the process. I don't know how we would put that in the chart, or if that makes sense to you. And if you disagree, I'm happy to hear it. But those are the things that come to mind. And I don't know if Brian maybe has any ideas or not. I'm just trying to think of what the things that we went through last year. There was a little bit of gray area in the middle, and I'd really like more detail in those boxes for when we look at it again, so that I feel comfortable giving somebody a 2 or a 3 or a 4, because sometimes I went back and I thought, and I did it the same way that you would mark, when you're marking a grade for the first time, I would look at all the papers first, kind of get an idea where everybody is, and then go back and start again. And that's kind of, I think, what we have to do with these things as well. But that being said, I think that if we had a clearer, this is what a 2 looks like, and this is what a 3 looks like, and this is what a 4 looks like, it would make it a lot easier and a lot less, there's subjectivity anyway, but it would make it a little bit more objective so that we all come up with similar scores. I think that when we did it, we all did pretty much come up with similar scores anyway, but I'd like it to be as transparent as possible so that people know why we're making the decisions that we're making. So anyway, I'll let you unpack all that garbage I just threw at you and see if anything reasonable comes out of what I just said.
Through the chair. No, we really like your tiebreaker. Me and Garrett were just saying that's a great idea. Do we want to brainstorm it quickly so we don't have to come back and we can launch the program, or do you want to leave it with us to put that together? Okay. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. And then as for the criteria, so what we did in the updated one that I attached to the report is we changed it to be, it was an unacceptable application, an average one, and then exceptional. So we just left it at 3 now. And then the way I did it in the criteria, I did each one specifically to the question with the idea that it would help guide more easily how you're answering that question. So we're not going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 anymore. It's going to be 0, 2, or 4. And so it's either unacceptable, exceptional, or average was kind of the idea behind it. But I think because of that, the tiebreaker is really important. So I really like that idea. And then as for if they're investing more, we could say if you're investing like 50% more than, or whatever it is, we come up with a number, we could give them an additional point. I don't know if that is something, so we could just add a criteria, I think, to address that one.
Through you, Chair. So, yes, I like all those ideas. I don't know if we want to include it as a bonus, and if we did that, that would be a place to include the first-time applicant as a tiebreaker or whatever, as a deduction, or putting it into a box somewhere where if you're also receiving a tax incentive, it's kind of a double dipping situation. I mean, we want, the bottom line is we're putting these programs in place so that people take advantage of them. So I'm not necessarily opposed to people using both, because the goal is the same. It's let's get people to invest in heritage properties, own heritage properties, love heritage properties, and let's show that we also support them. So whichever one the committee comes up with, I'm happy with. But I do think first-time applicants should get that little boost, so that way we can get more people doing it. So maybe that could be the tiebreaker, first-time applicant. I don't know. If you have other ideas, I'm happy to listen.
Yeah, first-time applicant, that could be a nice boost. I did want to just, one question with like the increased investment criteria, because I know part of our concern too is like we really wanted people who are making like safety upgrades to their house and like that kind of stuff to also be prioritized. So like I just don't want to see them lose out if they're not spending as much money, but I guess that's why we have the whole bunch of criteria is to help with that. But yes, Councillor Christiangi.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Yeah, I'm kind of leery on that one just because I feel like you have an advantage if you have more money. And that's kind of it gets into some muddy waters. I do like the first time getting that extra point, and I do like perhaps if you're already getting it from somewhere else, that could, if you're not getting it from another program, then that might be useful in a tie-breaking situation as well.
Yeah, good point. Yes, Amy, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I like the tie-breaking in terms of giving preference to a first-time applicant. I agree with Councillor DeFlavio in terms of encouraging people to take advantage of both programs. So I'm not really in favor of limiting someone who's being actively involved and trying to take advantage. But in terms of the contribution, the financial contribution, I don't know, maybe instead, because I agree, I was going to say, I feel like that's just going to give us preference and set criteria where certain individuals have more favorability than others. But maybe we look at it as the significance and the scope of the project. So maybe there's some sort of scoring criteria that goes in terms of the importance of what's the word I'm looking for? The repair, the modification, or whatever it is that they're investing in. I don't know. Versus a dollar amount.
I just wonder if that's subjective, unless because they have to, what they're improving are like the heritage attributes that are listed in the designation.
Well, I guess the significance of whatever, like if someone just wants to change the aesthetics of the porch and then we're down to 2 candidates and someone really, we brought up the designation about a safety issue, right? Like weighing it out, that, I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is I'm not in favor of putting restrictions or rewarding people putting financial contributions. I guess I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, Amy. No, yes, sorry, did I miss someone? Yes, Mayor Jordan. Go ahead, Mayor Jordan.
Thanks, through you, Chair. I agree with Amy. Sometimes something that might be a project that is only a few $1,000s may be really important to that house, and it may be really important to the actual overall heritage attribute, whereas sometimes something might cost quite a bit more and really not significantly change the house. So I think that that's might be like not the right way to it might handcuff the committee when doesn't need to be, so we could be open to that, so.
Thank you, through the chair. I was just going to help for the, some of the items we're talking about. So just to go back to the criteria again, so maybe I'll just go over what we have so far. So we have, in general, would the proposed works be in compliance with the standards and guidelines for historic places in Canada? So that's how we're making sure that what they're doing is reversible. It's not going to permanently alter the building in a negative way. So that's where they get points. If it's unacceptable, they get no points. If it's average, it's 2. If it's exceptional, they get 4. Then the next one is, are the proposed works being completed on a protected attribute? If the answer is yes, it is getting, the attribute is being repaired, is it average or is it exceptional? And then that's where you get 2 or 4 points. So that focuses on encouraging the attribute. So the idea is like the applications that meet these will kind of like rise to the top. So that's that one. And then will the proposed works support the long-term preservation of the building? And then I've put, for the purpose of this question, short-term is between 5 and 10 years and long-term is 15 to 25. So is the work that they're doing like a very substantial change that's going to benefit the building? Then they can get up to 4 points for that. Then the next one is, does the scope of work include the use of best practices? So is it generally following the use of best practices, or is it like a fantastic example? Then they can get higher points. And then that again encourages ones that are in keeping with best practices to rise up again. And so that's how we're not removing important buildings. We're not demolishing an important piece of the site, things like that. Will the proposed works be visible from the public realm? So is there more benefit to the community because they're going to get to see it? Then they score higher. So that was that criteria. And then again, for all of these, it's now unacceptable, average, or exceptional. So there's no more like in between numbers. It's just 0, 2, or 4. Will the proposed work include sustainable upgrades to protected attributes? So are they keeping their wood windows and will be doing weather stripping and things like that to break up the R value? Then they can get up to 4 additional points just for doing something like that. Are the applicants a not-for-profit organization completing the work? If they are, then yes. And then we added in new criteria at the end. I'll get back to it, but essentially, are you receiving funding from everywhere else? If the answer is yes, you get -2 points. So basically, they'll cancel each other out. So if they're getting the community grant for the not-for-profit, then they don't get like an extra kind of step up in this program. So that's to kind of factor in the 2-1. And then if you applied for the tax incentive, you just lose 2 points. You can still apply, but you lose the 2 points. And then we had last year, does the proposed works include structural upgrades? So then you can again, get up to 4 points for that. And then this year we added in, does the proposed work include safety upgrades? Because last time we kind of had the discussion around railings, like someone had a structural upgrade where like their porch was going to collapse if they didn't do the repair. So that's more structural, where if someone didn't have a railing, that's more safety. And then kind of the backing behind the safety being added in is like, that'll help them get affordable insurance. So that's kind of like those 2 criteria. Now someone has the opportunity to get up to 4 additional points. And then the one I mentioned about, is the applicant receiving any additional municipal funding? If they are, they lose 2 points automatically. So everyone can apply, but it just like gives people who didn't get money yet a chance to get kind of rise up a little higher. And then it looks like we're going to add in a tiebreaker one. And right now I have that you're not getting funding from anywhere else would be one of the items. And then the other one was first-time applicant. So that's what we have right now. So I don't know if that helps the committee's discussion.
Thanks for going over those again. I think it seems to, the criteria and the questions you have, I think kind of addresses our questions about significance of the project and the safety components and kind of making things accountable and fair. So I think, thank you for going through them a little bit in more depth. Does the bonus of giving a point to someone who hasn't received funding, is that kind of like question 10, but like in reverse? I don't know, maybe I'm getting myself confused because the question 10 is if they're receiving funding, you lose 2 points. But then if you don't receive funding, you also get a point. Is that what's happening?
Through the chair. So if you're receiving funding from anywhere else, it's -2.
Okay.
So, and then if you're a not-for-profit, you would have gotten a 2 points.
Oh, okay.
So this is basically giving them back to 0. And then any usual applicant that comes in who received the tax rebate just automatically loses 2. So that will allow, it's basically saying if you're someone who hasn't received funding yet, you're kind of getting 2 extra points against someone who's getting the funding. Yeah.
Through your chair, so that means you're currently receiving funding. It doesn't mean that you previously received funding. So what we're saying, so to answer your question, I think that's different than somebody who is a first-time applicant, because additional funding is being received is in the current. It's not has been received in the past, or additional funding has previously received a grant. It seems to mean that concurrently they are receiving tax relief or some other grant program. Am I misreading that?
Through the chair, I'm thinking like in that year. So if like they're applying, say this year, we would look last year, did you get a tax rebate? If the answer is yes, then you lost 2 points, was how I would see it. It would be like the previous year. Yeah, so I can put that right in the criteria.
Yeah, maybe clarify that. And yeah, I wasn't asking, I think the first time applicant is separate, but we're saying there's another bonus. There's a bonus for someone who hasn't received or isn't receiving funding?
So through the chair, that would be if there's a tiebreaker. I'm
Okay.
thinking we'll give an extra point if they're not getting funding anywhere else, and then they get an extra point if it's a first-time applicant.
Okay, so these are just tiebreakers?
Yeah, these are just
Okay.
tiebreakers. So if there's anything else we want to add into the tiebreakers, we would just add a point.
I understand. I'm
It's just to
sorry.
help if there's someone that are too close.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. I think I was getting confused about the point system, but okay, it's all, okay, thank you. Any other questions? Yeah, I think those work for tiebreakers, and I really like, and I also want to say, I think this really is enhancing the transparency of the program, but then also the accountability as well, asking for quotes and having that dialogue, I think is a really great part of the program as well. So I just wanted to mention that. Yes, Councillor Cristangi?
Thank you, through Chair. I just want to make a comment and commend staff on their work on this. Just putting it all together, taking the feedback, the consultation and giving the owners of the homes a say in what they would like, and then actually taking that into consideration. So I think that's very valuable. So I think you guys have done a great job, and we appreciate it. And I'm sure all the heritage homeowners do as well. So I think that deserves to be recognized for sure.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Councillor Cristangi. We're definitely very excited about this great program. And Brian, I see that your hand is up. Go ahead.
Through you, Chair. A couple of questions that I wanted to ask on the grant application form. First off, is this only ever going to be people from this committee that are evaluating this, or would this possibly be people outside of the committee that may not have some of the background knowledge on heritage properties?
Through the chair, yeah, we're recommending that stays the same. So it was the selection committee that's elected by this committee. So it'll be members of this committee. And some of the stipulations were you can't be on the selection committee if you're applying for funding. So we're not recommending any change to that. It'll run the way it did this year. So it's basically this committee elects the selection committee, then the selection committee makes a recommendation to Heritage Committee, and then Heritage Committee makes a recommendation to Council.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I second the comments that are made by Councillor DeFavia around the more clarity around some of the items there, just for the objectivity piece of it. Just more specific we can get on those, I think the better. And then the question I had was where the question at the top of the form that says, is this property designated? Is this going to be open to properties on the register as well as designated properties, or is this only available to designated properties?
Through the chair, it will be only designated properties, so we're just confirming it is on the form. It's just internal.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just an internal form. So we're just, because you have to be designated, so we're just confirming it on the form. But yes, it would be only for our designated sites.
through you, Chair. That's what I figured. I was wondering maybe that question would have more value if it just put like which year was it designated, because it almost seems like it doesn't need to be on there if this is only going to be a designated property. So maybe just changing it to which year they were designated as opposed to just is it designated or not. And then a couple other questions I had through you, the Chair. The question around not-for-profit. So clarity, if I was reading the report, it says that the property owners suggested that not-for-profits be ineligible for this. And the feedback from the staff was, no, we think they should be eligible. And further, it looks like we actually award points for them being a not-for-profit. So I was curious as to know where the recommendation around the prioritization of the not-for-profits came from. Like, was that a council feedback? Was that something that came out of looking at other communities that had similar programs in place that did prioritize those?
Through the chair. Yes, so that was actually something the committee talked about wanting. This kind of came up with a site we had because they were a not-for-profit organization that was approached about designation, and they were really happy with the support that was provided. And so we talked a bit about that and how it was a very positive outcome of the designation, that they did get a lot of support and that they were going to be using their conservation master plan to repair their foundation work. So the committee had talked about, let's prioritize non-for-profit organizations to help them have additional funding to care for the buildings. So it was here at the committee that was a priority of the criteria. So I don't know if that's changed, but we felt it worked well this year, so.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that one. And one last one through the chair. Question number 9, I may be reading it backwards, but I don't know. It seems like the scale at the bottom is flipped. It says, are there safety upgrades? Yes, you get 2 points. And then the clarification below that is there's no safety upgrades proposed. And then the other one says, no, there are safety proposed. Like, am I reading that wrong, or is that those just flipped?
Through the chair, that's on me. It should be switched.
Okay, fair.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Thank you for catching that.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah, they lost points if there was an upgrade. Yeah, thank you.
Fair. Okay. All right, that's all for me. Thanks.
Thank you for your questions, Brian, and for your good catch. Awesome. Are there any other questions from the committee? Okay, so you're going back, you're adding a tiebreaker and then updating some of the criteria to be a little bit more clear and objective, more fleshed out, it seems. Okay. I think with that, then, we're ready to go on to the resolution. And again, thank you for your work on this. It's really exciting to see this come about for the second year, and I'm excited to see what great projects are pursued because of it. Our resolution for report HR 2515 dated for July 22nd, 2025, designated property grant program update report be received, and that the Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee recommends that the criteria and requirements for the Heritage Grant Program be updated with the recommendations that resulted from the review of the pilot program. A mover, Councillor Kristangi, and a seconder, Mayor Jordan. Mayor Jordan can second, right? Yeah.
I wish he could.
Oh. Yes.
I thought you were a member of every committee.
I know. Clerks told me no, even though I
For
want you
voting,
all.
I think you should be in the second.
You're the honorary vote. All in favor? Okay, that's great, and that's carried. Thank you. Okay, next up is another exciting report talking about the Heritage Property Tax Relief Pilot Program and a draft bylaw. So I know we've all been very excited about this report and this progress. So Garrett, I'll leave it to you to go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Tonight's report provides an overview of the recommended Heritage Property Tax Relief Program and the draft bylaw, along with the committee's feedback on the report that was brought to the committee at the June 10th meeting. To summarize, the proposed program would allow owners of designated properties, residential and commercial properties, to apply for a reduction to their property taxes. This would only be for the municipal and the education portions, which will be covered by the town and the province. Further to the bylaw, staff have outlined the materials that will be created to implement and promote the program. This includes the Heritage Conservation and Maintenance Agreement, the program application, and the administrative guide. So the maintenance and conservation agreement will be between the town and the property owners that meet the program qualifiers and eligibility criteria. The agreement will also be for properties that have passed a site inspection when applicable, confirming compliance with the town's property standards bylaw, and that the continued maintenance of the property's heritage attributes is being done. The agreement would be valid for 1 year and requires the property owner to maintain active insurance on the property. It also obliges the owner to preserve the designated heritage attributes and maintain the building in a condition consistent with that of a prudent property owner. Additionally, the agreement prohibits the owner from undertaking or permitting any demolition or alteration that would materially affect the appearance or structural integrity of the heritage attributes without first obtaining a heritage permit. The administrative guide is under development by staff, and it will provide an overview of the program, including the eligibility criteria, the program qualifiers, the application timelines, and the program procedures. The guide will further provide an overview of the responsibilities of the town and the designated property owner. And a little bit about the program promotion. It will be promoted through social media, the town's website, and staff will be mailing packages with all of this information to designated property owners, excluding town-owned properties and those exempt from municipal taxation. Any questions on any of those documents first, and then I'll go into the draft bylaw? Nope. Okay, sounds good. So the draft bylaw presented tonight is required to implement the program in accordance with the Municipal Act. Just kind of high level about the bylaw, it will include the duties of the town to fulfill the requirements of the Municipal Act and to implement the program. The duties of the property owner. The bylaw will state the maximum amount of relief, which will be based on the municipal property assessment cap, and the maximum proposed for commercial and residential properties is $750,000. The bylaw will state the amount of relief offered to each property class, which will be 40% for residential properties and 20% for commercial properties. The bylaw will state the form of the relief, which will be a reduction in taxes. The bylaw will state the application process and the materials and information required for complete applications, and remedial actions for breaches of the agreement and any town bylaws. The bylaw further outlines additional responsibilities of the property owner and the town, such as site inspections, the potential of an application fee in the future, what would happen in the event of a property that's sold while receiving the reduction, the availability of funding from the town, and that multiple reductions cannot be applied to the same property. So following review of the draft bylaw by the Heritage Committee, a report will be sent to council with the components of the program for final approval and the draft bylaw. If the draft bylaw is passed by council, staff will begin implementing the program, which is expected to launch in November of this year. In summary, staff recommend that the program be implemented in accordance with the Municipal Act and the best practices identified through the consultation process. The implementation of this program will enable the allocation of available funding and to further support the preservation of the town's cultural heritage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Garrett, for that presentation. Do we have any questions or comments from the committee? Yes, Councillor DeFlavio.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I just wanted to say thank you to both our heritage and our finance staff. This is a lot. I mean, looking through that draft bylaw, there are a lot of details. There's no doubt in my mind that we'll probably revise these as years go forward because we always find things that, but it looks like a great place to start. The only thing that I wanted to add, and I sent it to Garrett and Bianca via email, was I think that we should follow this with a request from the Heritage Committee to the town of Grimsby to ask the region of Niagara to look at matching with a regional, with the regional equivalent. I know that the region stopped their grant program in 2024. I think if nobody asks, it's never going to happen. So the way to start is just by asking. The worst thing they could say is no, but I would like it to be in writing that we ask the region to match our tax incentive program, so that way they can look at it, have a discussion of it at finance, and look at the economic impact of it, maybe set a budget for it if it's something they want to do. But if we never put it in writing, we never actually formally ask, it's never going to happen. So somebody has to be the person to ask, and since we're dealing with it here, if the committee thinks it's appropriate, I think this would be a good place to start.
Thank you, Councilor DeFlavio. Yes, Mayor Jordan, go ahead.
Thank you, through you. I completely agree with that, Councilor DeFlavio. I think that the region has been giving grants to developers and developers that have deep pockets and have made a lot of money in Niagara, and they've kind of pushed heritage away. And I think possibly it may be because developers are squeaky wheels. Let's figure it. Let's face that. And I think that the Heritage Committee and the town of Grimsby, we need to be more squeaky as it comes to the region putting their fair share in with respect to heritage properties. And I know I have support from a couple other mayors that feel the same way as I do. So just leave it with that.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. Yes, Councilor Cristangi, go ahead.
Thank you. I agree. And I'm just curious, is there some way that we could actually delegate to the region and make like an actual presentation and show what we've done and what we think? And I mean, it's also part of a tourism strategy for Niagara as well, because our heritage is, it's definitely worth investing in. But maybe in addition to a letter, or in the letter, if we could formally do a delegation to regional council or one of their committees, that might be beneficial.
Thank you for that idea. I'm definitely supportive of this. I think, we're doing some really good work here. We're showing that we're investing in our built heritage with these programs. And if the Grimsby can be a leader for the rest of Niagara and kind of bring this to the region and show that, what we're doing is possible, and kind of asking for the region's support, but then also, getting other municipalities on board with this kind of work as well. I think it does have to start somewhere, and I think, the Grimsby has been a leader in the designation process, so I think we can be a leader in this tax incentive process as well. So I think that's a really great idea. Did I see another hand from you, Councillor? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So I sent a draft resolution to you, Bianca. I don't know if you want to, if you could just put it up. If it's, people don't, it's kind of wordy, so I apologize. It talks about the Municipal Act and the ability to, we could just take the last part. The Heritage Advisory Committee recommends that the council request the Niagara region consider passing a bylaw to match the town of Grimsby Heritage Property Tax Relief Program. But there's just the whereases are like the descriptions of the provincial laws that permit that to occur. Going back to your statement, Mayor, I agree wholeheartedly, and it's and Councilor Cristangi's as well. We seldom talk about the economic benefit of heritage. We talk about it, but it's not, other than Niagara Falls and the wineries in Niagara, the heritage, and Niagara Falls is part of the heritage, so please don't misunderstand me, but it's one of the major selling features of our region. And anytime we talk about a tourism strategy, it's the first thing that I think of. It's one of the first things that comes to mind. So more than anything else, I think it goes along the lines of what we've talked about repeatedly, and that is we can't just talk about it, we have to do something about it. And I'm happy that we have the support for it. If you look back at how much the town of Grimsby has seen invested as a result of the money that the town and the region have spent, it's like 5 to 1. So if the town of Grimsby spent $500,000, we saw $2.5 million worth of investment in heritage properties in the town of Grimsby. I mean, everybody knows the major ones off the top of their head. There's Teddy's, there's Harmony House, there's the old fire hall. There are ones that are not just important to Grimsby that were part of that facade improvement program and that grant program the region was matching. But I think that are the kinds of projects that across the province and across the country people look at as examples of what you can do with a heritage grant program. That's why the Prince of Wales Trophy came to the town of Grimsby. It was because our heritage staff had, and our heritage committee and council, everybody together saw the value of this, and the region thankfully was matching that at the time. I think it's a win-win-win across the board. So anyway, it's a little wordy, and if the gist of it is the last part where the heritage committee requests the Niagara region consider passing a bylaw to match the town of Grimsby's heritage property tax relief program. Everything else is just the municipal act allows it. It's, we're allowed to have a bylaw. The town of Grimsby is going to enact a bylaw, et cetera. I guess we would have to, as a town of Grimsby, wait till we actually pass the bylaw in order to send this to the region. But other than that, this is just saying what we've talked about here.
Just for Brian and our listeners, we're currently considering updates for our motion and what the wording will be.
I just say it on the microphone. I don't know if this will be new business or the only reason I brought it up here was because we're talking about so I'm sorry if I'm distracting from the conversation, and we should pass that first and then deal with this. I think probably that's the more appropriate way to do it. And so if I muddled things up, I'm sorry. It's just, I sent it to myself and it got stuck because I sent it from my personal address, it went into the abyss, whatever that's called, where you have to release it to quarantine, sorry. And then I saw the quarantine notification and I thought, oh no. And so I forwarded it to you now. So I apologize that you just got it at the beginning of the meeting.
Through the chair, I know Terry has something she wants to add. I have the resolution from the program and I have 2 drafted ones that could deal with the heritage side of it. And then maybe we go to council with the notice of motion. I don't know, I'll read you what I have here. That the Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee recommends that correspondence be provided to the Niagara region requesting consideration for their contribution to the tax relief program, and that the Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee include a delegation request within the correspondence. That's what I have here to go with the tax program. But I don't know how the committee wants to do it. I think Terry might have some thoughts about when it should go or how, but this could go with this, and then this could speak to once council approves it. I don't know.
Through you, like if you guys wanted to discuss and refine and stuff like that, that might be a great opportunity here. And then because we're bringing the report separately to council on August 11th, just to make it clear for when we send to the province with the bylaw and everything like that, that's a great opportunity to bring that motion up to the council floor as well. So it's coming from town council to say that this is what they're looking for as well. And it's been supported by the Heritage Committee as well.
So to clarify, are we doing it separately? I think I'm still a bit unclear.
Through the chair, this is awkward to talk to Terry this way. Do you think that we should just put in the resolution that the Heritage Committee endorses the notice of motion? Does that make sense? Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, so we're endorsing a notice of motion that then will be brought up at council. Is that what's happening? Yes, Terry, go ahead.
Sorry, to clarify that again. Sorry, if you refine it here and add anything else, because I think Councillor also wanted to add a delegation to it and other components, so there might be other refinements you want, and then make that recommendation. And then if one of the councillors brings it to the council floor that day, then you can recommend that you want to do that and support it here, but it would probably be clearer in the minutes to have it all through council minutes is what I'm suggesting, that's all.
That sounds good to me. I just would like this to be clear and have the most impact. So however we want to do that. Yes, Garrett.
Through you, Chair, just a proposal for the first line. So the Municipal Act states that if the upper tier municipality is agreeable, they can contribute to the tax relief program. So I'm proposing possibly changing that wording. Thank you.
So I think what the best way forward right now is to take a recess, to draft this to the best of our ability, and then to come back. And that will allow us to kind of spend the time we need to refine this a little bit more, and then we can come back to the committee and discuss. So at this point, I think we're going to take a bit of a break. Okay, everyone, we are back from our little break. I hope people are feeling rested. We've done lots of work here behind the scenes. So just to give an update, we took a recess so that we could go back through the notice of motion to change the language a little bit. What we're going to do now is discuss the report, see if there's any questions, any comments from the committee, and then we will move to the notice of motion, look at what that says, make sure we're happy with that language, and once we are, then we will go to the resolution. Does that sound like a plan for everyone? Thank you for everyone's patience. Okay, so going back to the report, Councilor DeFlavio started it off with some comments and some questions for the notice of motion. Are there any other comments or questions from the committee regarding the report and the tax incentive program? Okay, that's great. I also, again, want to echo what Councilor DeFlavio said about all of the work that was put into this. It's really great to see this come together. I'm really excited to bring this forward into the community and to see, again, the good work that's going to come out of this. What I really appreciate about the program and how it's set up is it really emphasizes dialogue with the property owners. You know, we're doing site visits, we're having these conversations about the site itself. There's transparency, there's accountability, and I think that's really good for creating a good collaborative dialogue with property owners and town staff. So I'm really happy to see that. Okay, if there's no other questions, we're going to bring the notice of motion onto the screen here. So what's going to happen is if we're good with this notice of motion, once we pass our resolution, this goes to council, Councilor DeFlavio will then bring this to the floor at the next council meeting. So but we want to make sure that we're all happy with the language first. I was going to say, is it possible to make it a little bit bigger? So the chair should be reading this? Okay. It might be more visible. Behind me, but then can I take this with me? Oh my gosh, Garrett, you're so smart. Okay, I'm going to read out the notice of motion and then we can discuss. So I have a resolution that we request that the Niagara region contribute to the Heritage Property Tax Relief Program requirements under Section 365.8 of the Municipal Act, whereas Section 365.2 of the Municipal Act 2001 permits local municipalities to establish tax relief programs for eligible heritage properties. And whereas the Heritage Committee is recommending that the town of Grimsby enact a bylaw to establish a heritage property tax relief program intended to encourage the conservation, maintenance, and stewardship of designated heritage properties within the town. And whereas the town's program provides tax reliefs up to 40% of eligible residential properties and up to 20% for eligible commercial properties based on the municipal and education portions of the tax bill. And whereas Section 365.2 of the Municipal Act also allows upper tier municipalities to participate in the cost of tax reductions by passing a similar law. Therefore, be it resolved that the council requests the Niagara region to consider passing a bylaw under Section 365.2 of the Municipal Act to contribute to the town of Grimsby's Heritage Property Tax Relief Program, and that a copy of this resolution, together with a copy of the town's bylaw, be forwarded to the Niagara Region's Commissioner of Corporate Services and the regional clerk for consideration, and that the town of Grimsby be provided an opportunity to delegate to regional council to further detail the program and the importance of heritage to the town and region. Okay, how do we feel about this? It covers our request for a region to consider contributing to the tax program, as well as a request for us to delegate. Are there any other aspects that we'd like to add to this notice of motion. Okay. Thank you to Councilor DeFlavio for putting this forward. Thank you to Garrett and Bianca and Terry as well for working on the language and for kind of setting up how best to put this forward. We're feeling good. Okay. With that, I now have my new resolution that I'll read out that kind of includes this new update. Resolved that report HR 2516 dated July 22nd, 2025, Heritage Property Tax Relief Pilot Program and draft bylaw report be received, and that the Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee recommends that the draft bylaw be finalized and sent to council for approval. And that the Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee endorses the notice of motion to be presented to council regarding the tax incentive program, requesting contribution to the program and delegation requests. Do I have a mover? We have Amy and a seconder. We have Brian for that one. All in favor? Great, that's carried. Thank you very much, everyone. That's awesome. Whew, great work. Now I'm moving on to new business. Bianca, did we have new business about August, or is that not new business? We do. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, I think technically it's announcements, I guess, now in the new format. It was just about the August 11 meeting, 11th. It's like our agenda is going to be going out in, is it 12th? Oh, sorry. Yes, council's the 11th. That's the 12th. We're going to be publishing in the next couple weeks. We don't have a ton of new stuff that needs to go on that agenda. So we are recommending we leave it open in case something time sensitive comes up. Otherwise, the other items could go to September. So we just wanted to get the committee's thoughts on that because we moved this one out. We basically have another meeting in a couple weeks, so.
Sounds good to me. I think if there's anything that comes up, then we can keep that spot available. But if not, then I think that's fine to move until September. So that works. Okay, awesome. I do have two items that I just wanted to bring up to the committee, more just to kind of keep us up to date on some recent news in the kind of the heritage world and our neighboring communities. So some of you might be aware that last Monday, St. Catharines City Council voted down the city's proposal for a downtown heritage conservation district. And I wanted to bring this up because the delegates who were opposed to this were quite vocal and were relying on some unfounded myths regarding heritage conservation districts as a case against them. And I just think it's important to kind of bring this up because we know that, staff work really hard with property owners to develop these heritage conservation districts. And I understand that, Grimsby has been working around one for Main Street East. And so keeping that in mind that, I think the committee as well as, us as heritage advocates, should be having these conversations with our community about heritage, about designation, about these conservation districts, and the positives that they give these communities, but also dispelling the myths when they're encountered. And so a lot of the myths that were brought up to St. Catharines had to do with, insurance costs and costs of things that are overlooking the benefits, which are economic benefits, right? And then also we have, just the ideas of community identity and having that character preserved and the economic benefits that these brings those communities as well. So I just wanted to bring that up as something to keep in mind, that these are the heritage these are the heritage conversations that are having in neighboring communities as well. Knowing that town staff are working with the Main Street East and what the future of that study looks like. So I just wanted to bring that up. And then the second comes out of the Halton region. So the Halton Region's Heritage Service, this was created back in 2014 with the closure of Halton Region Museums, which was the regional museum that had the collections, all of the historical interpretation. When that closed, they created the Heritage Services to kind of take up that that work. They created, and they became the central museum service for the region. They had the whole collection, the museum collection, archives, artifacts. They did all of the interpretation for the region as well. These are exhibits, programming. They've been working with community partners to do this work across the region. And on at the beginning of July, Halton Region voted to close that program and to deaccession and divest of the collections for the region. And this was done through a confidential report that we don't have access to. And I bring this up to kind of just remind us that, here in Grimsby, we're working really hard to invest in our heritage and to have these stories and to educate and to promote heritage to the community. But this isn't happening all over, and that we're actually facing quite a bit of challenge in the current environment that we're in. So I just wanted to kind of use these as an example to say that this work that we're doing is so important, and to have these conversations and to create the dialogue we're doing with the property owners is important work, and we're moving towards something, and I'd like to see us position ourselves as leaders, and that's why I was really excited to hear us wanting to put forward a notice of motion to the region, because outside of what we're doing in Grimsby, it's a scary world for heritage right now, and we're seeing challenges, and we're seeing this divestment and this movement away from something that's really important to our communities and our well-being. So I just wanted to bring those up to let you know kind of some things that are happening around, and if you have any questions or comments, I'm happy to talk more, but just wanted to send that out to say, hey, we're doing the good work here, and to keep it up. And then I think on that good note, thank you. All right, so thank you for a really productive meeting today, and I look forward to seeing you all again in September. So thank you.
Night, everyone.